Here's your chapter 3 practice test video. So number 1 here, solve v squared minus v is equal to 72. So remember, when we're going to solve by factoring or solving quadratics, a lot of times we're going to put them on one side of the equation. So we have our v squared minus v. We have to bring this 72 over. So it's going to become negative. We're going to set it equal to 0. Remember, when the coefficient is 1, it's simpler to go ahead and see if you can do v times a v. Remember, I told you if this one is negative, it doesn't matter what this one is. One's positive and one's negative. And then you just have to ask yourself, what are factors of 72? That will give me a negative 1v. And you should be able to tell me negative 9 and positive 8. Now remember, those are not our answers. Our answers are when we set those equal to 0. So I'll have v plus 8 is equal to 0, and v minus 9 is equal to 0. Again, that's by the zero product property. So if I solve the first one, I'll get that v is equal to negative 8. And then the second one, v is equal to positive 9. So those two are your answers. On the second one, again, find the zeros of f of x is equal to negative x squared plus 9x minus 18, plus 8 minus 18, excuse me, I was right the first time. And again, I'm going to set that equal to 0. Now on this one right here, ladies and gentlemen, just think there's a negative in front of the x squared. Why don't we just divide through by negative 1? Because all that's going to do to us is that will make it so that all of the things change signs. So then I'll have x squared minus 9x plus 18 is equal to 0. And that's a lot easier to deal with than having a negative in front of the x squared. So again, remember, look at this one here. It's positive this time. So when this one is positive, you have to look at the middle term. It's negative. So that tells us that we're going to have x minus, and we're going to have x minus is equal to 0. And in this case here, what are two factors of 18 that add up to negative 9? Well, that would be negative 6 and negative 3. And then again, by the zero product property, we would say that x is equal to 6 and x is equal to 3. The easiest way to think about it, people, is once you have them in the factors, it's going to be the opposite of what you see, because that's what makes them 0. Right? So we should have a 6 and a 3 on that one. On the next one here, we have 2v squared plus 4v. And let's move the 6 over and set it equal to 0. And again, on this one here, it'd be easier to factor out a 2. So when I factor out a 2, I'll have v squared plus 2v minus 3 is equal to 0. Divide by 2, I'll just end up with v squared plus 2v minus 3 is equal to 0. Again, a v and a v. The last term's negative. We just did one like that on number 1. One's positive, one's negative. To have a positive 2v, I'm going to have plus 3 minus 1. Those are my factors. So I'll get v is equal to negative 3, and v is equal to positive 1. All right, now on this one here, they're telling us to use square roots. All right, so what that means is what we're going to do is we're going to move that x squared over to this side and get all the x squareds on one turn. And then we're going to take the number and we're going to put it over on the other side. So on this one here, when I subtract that 1x squared, I'll get 3x squared plus 27 is equal to 0. And I'm going to move the 27 over to the other side. It becomes negative. I'm going to divide by 3, so I'll get x squared is equal to x squared, is equal to negative 9. And then, again, we would take it and we would get x is equal to plus or minus the square root of negative 9. And we know that as we got on in this chapter, we ended up getting plus or minus 3i. Now, here's the big thing. I warned you guys this during class. I'm going to warn it to you again. A lot of you will try to give me the answer as plus or minus 3, but you don't see an I there. Since you don't see an I there, the only solution you can have is no real solution. Don't lose points because you work it all the way out, yet you tell me it's plus or minus 3. All right? So let's find the square root of a negative 162. So on this one here, let's see, we're going to have 162. Let's go off to the side here and do our factor tree. So we'll have 2, and we'll have 81, and then we'll have 9 and 9. Remember, I told you if I have 2 that are the same, I have 2 here that are the same, I can bring that number out, all right? I can bring that number out, so I know I'm going to have 9, and then I'm going to have the square root of 2. So I have 2 that have that. Actually, I have 3 of them that have that. But again, remember, we have a negative. Since we have a negative under the radical, right? Remember, I can write that as an I. I have my 2 9s there. I can put those, and then I'll have that one, the square root of 2 that's left. So that's the one that it has to be. Okay? Remember, if there's a negative and they do give you an I, you have to have I in your answer. Okay, let's see. Number 6, find the values of x and y that satisfy the equation 16 plus 7yi is equal to negative 8x plus I. So on this one here, remember the real parts equal the real parts, and the imaginary parts equal the imaginary parts. So we're going to say the real parts, 16 is equal to negative 8x, and the imaginary parts are 7yi is equal to I. All right? So now we just have to solve for x and y. So on the first one here, we're going to divide both sides by negative 8, and we'll get that x is equal to negative 2. And then on the other one, just kind of think I'm still getting y by itself. I'm going to divide by 7, and I'm going to divide by I. I'm going to have a 7 on the bottom, and an I, and the I and the I divide out. So my answer is 1/7. I had a couple people trying to tell me it was 7. Well, it's not. 1/7 and 7 are completely different things. So be careful when you're dividing it out. All right? Number 7 is probably one of the hardest ones on here because we just have to work them all out. All right? So on the first one there, I'll just call this one here 1. I'll call this one here 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 for you. All right? So on the first one there, I have 4 minus I times 5i plus 1. I'm going to FOIL. So remember first terms. So on this one here, I'll have 20i. Outside terms will give me plus 4i. 4. That's not a I. Inside terms are negative 5i squared. And last terms are negative I. But I squared equals negative 1, people. Right? So this is now negative 1, which makes that a positive. So what I should have on this one here, when I work it out, I'll have 9 plus 19i. All right? So that's for number 1. For number 2, if I work that out, I'll have 10 I'm going to distribute that negative through the parentheses. So I'll have minus 4. I'll have plus 3i, and then I'll have plus 7i. So on that one there, I'll have 6 plus 10i. So that's for number 2. For number 3, let's see. If we do this, we'll have 23i minus 2. Again, I'm taking this just negative and I'm distributing it through that parentheses there. So that'll give me minus 4i. And then a negative times a negative will give me plus 11. So when I work that one out, I get 9 plus 19i. So that one's and the top one are similar. But I told you again, you have to go through all of them, people, just to make sure. So number 4 here, I'll distribute that 6, so that'll give me 18 plus 30i. That was an easy one, and it's not one that's together. Number 5, I'll have 16i plus 3 plus 4 plus 7i. Combining the like terms, that'll give me 23i and 7. So again, write it as 7 plus 23i. And that one's not similar to, so far it's only 1 and 3. And let's see, number 6 here. If I do that one there, I'll have 7i times 2, that's 14i. 7i plus 2i squared, times 2i is 14i squared, but that's, remember, that means that is a negative, right? So I'll have negative 14, and then I'll have plus 23 and plus 5i. Again, combining the like terms, negative 14 plus 23 is 9, and 14i plus 5i is 19i. So, according to the way I numbered them, the equivalent expressions that you would drag and drop would be 1 is equal to 3 is equal to 6. So don't stop just at 2 when you see that 2 are matching, because 3 might be matching. Okay. Number 8, it says find the zeros. So remember, when we're finding the zeros, we're going to write this as 6x squared plus 18 is equal to 0. And then I'm going to solve it. So I'm going to move the 18 over so it becomes negative. I'm going to divide by 6. So I'll get x squared is equal to plus or minus the square root of negative 18. Excuse me, negative 3. I'm sorry. I did divide by 6 first. So I'll have negative 3. I do apologize. All right. And remember, the negative on the inside, we write it as an I. So I'll get x is equal to plus or minus I root 3. So again, you would write I root 3 in one of these and negative I root 3 in the other one. Okay, remember, on completing the square, we're going to take our x squared and our negative 10x and put them together on one side. We're going to move the other thing over because it is equal to 0. And to complete the square, that's what we have to do. So we're going to take our x squared and our negative 10x on one side. Remember, I told you to put a blank there. And then on the other side, we're going to have negative 31, and we're going to put a blank there. All right? So then remember, I'm going to have the middle term and put it squared. So I'll have x minus 5 squared, and then I'm going to take that negative 5, and I'm going to square it and put it there. So negative 5 squared is 25, and I'm going to put the 25 there. And then I simplify the other side. which gives me negative 31 plus 25 is negative 6. So I'm going to say x minus 5 is equal to the square root plus or minus the square root of negative 6. But remember, I'm going to take that negative and put it outside. So I'll have plus or minus I root 6. And then to get the x by itself, I'm going to move that negative 5 over. So I'll have 5 plus or minus I root 6. So I'll have 5 plus I root 6. And then 5 minus I root 6 is our answers. All right, let's see on the next one here. Would everybody agree I could factor out a 6? Think about that as I'm writing this down, because you would say yes. So if I factor out a 6, and then I divide through by that 6, what do I have left? I'll have x squared, and then I'll have minus 2x, and then I'll have plus 4 is equal to 0. All right, again, think about it. I factored out the 6, but then when I have this 6, I'm going to divide by 6 and divide by 6, and we know it simplifies to what I got. So now again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put x squared in the x term plus a blank on one side, move the 4 over to the other side, and add a blank to that one there. Okay? Again, I'm going to have the middle term there. So half of negative 2 is negative 1. So I'll get x minus 1 squared equals, and then I square that. That'll give me a plus 1 there. And I'm going to put it in both ones. And again, combine the terms on the other side. So that will give me negative 4 plus 1, which is negative 3. So again, I'll have x minus 1 is equal to plus or minus. Again, I would have, when I take the square root, I would have a negative. So let's just go ahead and pull it out now and start getting used to doing simple, quick stuff like that. And then again, to get x by itself, we would have 1 plus or minus I square root of 3. So 1 plus I square root 3, 1 minus I square root 3. All right, oops, let me get rid of some of these people. All right. Well, actually, I don't think I have to. I'll just mention it. This is the one that we did on our last problem. All right. Actually, let me get rid of this one because I did not give you that one, but I did give you number 12. So I'm going to keep number 12 the same. We'll just explain it as soon as I'm done. All right, number 11, we should have, again, we're going to write it in vertex form. It's kind of like what we just did on number 12, those of you who are with me. So remember, we're going to say y, and in this case here, we have x squared plus 16x, and then I'm going to put plus a blank, and then in this case here, remember, since I have that y, I have to put everything on one side. So I'm going to put minus 7, all right? And then I'm going to minus the blank, all right? Because we're on the same side of the equal sign. So again, if I take the half there, so I'll have y is equal to, in this case, I'll have half of 16, which is 8. So I'll have x plus 8. And then remember, that's squared. So I square the 8. That'll give me 64. And then I'll put 64 over here. So then I'll have x plus 8 squared equals, and not equals, minus 7 minus 64. So negative 7 minus 64, which will give us negative 71. So that's our vertex form, x plus 8 quantity squared minus 71. And remember our vertex, we take the opposite of this one. So it'll be negative 8. And then we take the same of this one. So that'll be negative 71. All right. So remember, number 12 is kind of like that. What I had to show you is that to get this t squared and the t by itself, I factored out a negative 16. So if you think about that, when I divide by negative 16 here, that gave me negative 6t. All right. So then once I had that, again, notice I did the same thing I just did on number 11 there. All right. I put a blank and I put minus a blank. All right. So I'll have 16, negative 16. Again, I'll have this because I'm just worried about this now. So half of negative 6 is negative 3. And then I put it over here. Negative 3 squared is 9. So to finish that, completing the square, I have to add to the negative blank here. But remember, I kind of factored out the 16 there. So I was showing everybody this. Since I factored it out, I have to multiply it to this and then put it here, which is the negative 144. So negative times a negative is a positive, which is positive 148. And again, if we think about it, we talked about it, but when we're doing a parabola, our vertex is the highest point. So there's our vertex. So our highest point would be at 148 feet. And then I said, how long does it take for the arrow to hit the ground? Remember, our x value for our vertex is also our axis of symmetry, which means when we launched the arrow to its maximum height was 3 seconds. By symmetry, it takes the same amount of time to go hit the ground, so the total is 6 seconds. All right, so think about that. All right, and again, if you need me to explain it on Monday, I'll be more than happy to explain it again for you. All right. So on 13, we're almost done here, people. On 13, we're just going to use the formula. So remember, I told you it's up on a poster in my wall, in my room, and all you have to do is plug and chug. So we're going to say our A is equal to negative 2, our B is equal to 6, and our C is equal to 7. So I'm just going to plug it in. X is equal to negative, our B is 6, plus or minus, our B squared is 36, minus our 4 times negative 2 times negative, well, I should write it all down. I'm sorry. Trying to jump the gun here. So I'll have 6 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 7. So I had negative 2, negative 7. All of that over 2 times negative 2. All right, so when we simplify that, I'll have negative 6 plus or minus, I'll have 36. Let's see what I have, 36 minus 56. 4 times 2 times 7 is 8 times 7, so negative 56. So 36 minus 56, that'll give us negative 20. All right, you can work it out if you don't believe me. Okay, and then we'll have 2 times negative 2, which is negative 4. To keep simplifying, let's see. I know I have an I. Remember the square root of 20. I can write as the square root of 4 times the square root of 5. Square root of 4 is 2, so I can put a 2 out front here. And then I'll have the square root of 5 left underneath. And then I'll still have negative 4 on the bottom. Now, if you think about it, I can factor out a 2. So if I factor out a 2, I'll have negative 3 plus or minus I root 5 all over 2 times negative 2 times 2. The 2's cancel. So I would write it exactly the way you see it. All right. I would write one of them as negative 3 plus I root 5 over negative 2. It's a lot easier, and it does take it. I watched people put it in. And then I'll have negative 3 minus I root 5 over negative 2. All right, and finally, I showed you how to do the calculator. Again, we're just going to set y equals negative 5x squared minus 9x and put it in the calculator. And then the other one, we said y is equal to x squared plus 2x minus 8. And we put that in the calculator, and I told you it would round to the nearest hundredth. And again, if I have to show you on Monday, I'll be more than happy to. But you should have gotten negative 2.39 and 0.56. All right, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully you'll see it and understand it. But again, we're gonna, I didn't want to give you a test on Monday. We have time to answer questions on Monday. I'll see you then.